For the final episode of Season 2 of the Standard Age podcast, I sat down with Scott Newkirk, who grew up in Mississippi, only to find out he'd become a proud D student and a desire for something more. After a bit of time spent freelancing with retail visual work, Scott left for New York City, where he quickly immersed himself into the fashion world with the likes of Barney's and Armani. He quickly created a name for himself as a stylist, and after 2 decades in the city, Scott decided to take a break. After a stint back home in Mississippi, he was asked to become the creative director of Tabor, a menswear boutique in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had found Tabor on Instagram and paid them a visit last fall when I was home. I must say, their merchandise was fantastic given the conservative nature of North Carolina, and that's not to say the assortment is even all that loud. However, the labels themselves are simply those you don't see often, if ever, anywhere else in the state. So I guess I should say I was, proud on a certain level and was quite pleased to see the progression. Scott is incredibly hospitable, as is everyone else in the shop, and I really enjoyed chatting about the ins and outs of not only his career trajectory, but also their store breathing so much life into the menswear evolution in the South. If you have a moment, please rate and review this podcast, as it's instrumental in growing the show. As always, I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Well, Scott, thanks for taking part in the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about where you grew up. You were from...
I was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1960, which was probably a really tumultuous time for the South. Obviously it was. And we moved out to Madison, which is a little town just north of Jackson, when I was probably in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
And went to school out there, and my mom was a teacher. In fact, she taught in the same schools I went to from probably 3rd grade through 11th, which was always really interesting.
Oh yeah.
In fact, was my homeroom teacher when I was in the 7th grade, which was kind of tragic for me, but I made it through.
Too much of a finger on the pulse.
Way too much, And I was a proud D student, so it was always interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad was a civil engineer, and I'm the middle child of the 3 of us.
It's crazy. There are so many people that I've talked to that have mothers who were teachers. It's like probably the most common job of the mother of the guest on this podcast.
And I wonder, I don't know whether that's whether we're all a certain age group to where that was what a lot of moms did back in the 60s, 70s. I don't know what it is, but also I wonder, just sort of, I know that with my folks, they instilled a certain amount of interest in being creative and being independent and being sort of our own person, which I think was a huge part of my growing up with them. I think just there's a certain amount of open-mindedness that, especially for the South, that they gave us, which was pretty great.
Sure.
And my dad was, to some degree, as a civil engineer, he was always drawing. So that he was a real artist in some ways, always painting. He designed the house that we live in. I think any of the real interest or curiosity about art kind of came through him, which is cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What kind of style was he into?
I mean, just anything. He was just... I think he really just dabbled. It wasn't anything that he was that professional with at all, but he would do still lifes, or he would do, a Mayan mask that he found in a book, and just kind of anything that was technical and interesting for him to paint.
Sure.
He just passed away actually right after Christmas. And,
no, I'm sorry.
I just went through an old file I found of drawings he had done, which was kind of interesting to see, which was like, I never had seen anything like this before. And it was an array of things. So he was just always playing with different sort of ideas regarding that. Yeah.
So as far as your schooling was concerned, aside from mom being present through a lot of it, what kinds of things were you drawn to subject wise?
None of it.
Just a proud D student.
Exactly. It really was. I was uncomfortable in high school. I don't know. I just felt like this wasn't the right place for me. I didn't really have any ambitions at that point as to where I would be going, but I just knew I was ready. I just wanted to get home and get away from everybody that I was around, and sort of just dream and kind of explore and ride my motorcycle in the woods and build forts and kind of just sort of escape.
So were you
in a way?
So you're obviously into dirt bikes, not street bikes.
It was a Q8. It was a Honda Trail 70.
Okay.
So it was a trail bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Now,
cool.
do you still ride today?
No.
Okay.
No. But that was fun. It was just, we lived in the country, in the woods, a lake community, and there were all sorts of trails, and we were building forts and, kind of living out our fantasies, out in the woods, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, with how much you detested school, did you end up going to college?
For about a year and a half.
Where'd you go?
I went to a small junior college out in Jackson, near Jackson, and then for the first year, and then I went for 1 semester to Mississippi State.
Okay.
And like 3 weeks into it, I was just sort of like,
this isn't for me.
I'm done. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to figure it out if I stay here. So I left.
Were you working then?
I started working immediately. So I left after the first semester. I think I must have, over the Christmas holidays, I interviewed with this clothing store that had fairly recently opened in Jackson called Clothiers and Company. And got a job selling clothes there at 19 and spent about, so I was there for four years, doing that, selling clothes, and started doing display work, visual stuff in the store because nobody else was really taking care of it. So I just sort of took it upon myself to change windows and, do mannequins and all that. And then started working I kind of left full-time work there and just was a freelance display person for several stores in town and worked as a waiter and just kind of had a good time.
Sure.
And then finally got the bug to move to New York in like the fall of '84 and went up there in November and moved the first part of January of 1985.
Well, the dead of winter.
Dead of winter. Yeah, it was. Back when it actually snowed in November. Yeah, it was, yeah. I don't even remember it being cold, though.
Where'd you move to?
First apartment was on 33rd and 1st.
Okay, Midtown East?
Midtown, yep. And I just, a friend of mine that was from Jackson had moved up there and was working for Armani. And I stayed with him originally when I went to visit, and he introduced me to his boss who needed a roommate, and I moved in with him. Yeah. So many things just kind of fell into place at that time. It was crazy because he got me an interview with Barney's while I was there in November, met with them while I was there in November, and then had a job when I moved back in January, which was cool, working in their display department. Sure. And then shortly after that, started working for Armani as well. So I was kind of freelancing, just kind of bopping around and doing, full-time job at Barney's, and then leaving at the end of the day. I would take the subway up to 68th and Madison and do what I needed to do there for the store, and kind of kept on with them for about 7 years.
Sure. So then after Armani, where'd you go?
So I left Barney's after about a year or so and started just doing some freelance work. I actually was working with Armani and then waiting tables for a short time, and then started doing some freelance work with Bendels. And I met a guy, Robert Ruffino, who was ended up really being kind of a mentor for me, and I started assisting him. He started working as a stylist, and that was a fairly small industry at the time, and I was his assistant for 3 years.
So were you getting jobs mostly in conjunction with photographers directly or through publications?
Well, we were both. I was with him. It was I just was following whatever he was doing. So we did things for Estee Lauder. We did a lot of work for the New York Times Magazine at the time. Back then, it was that's what it was called, not T at that point.
Sure.
And doing men's and women's fashion and home design. So so that was the editorial side of it for us, mostly. And then eventually I kind of broke out on my own.
So then you were a stylist for years.
20-something years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started probably on my own, probably 89, something like that.
And then what companies were you routinely working with?
Well, J. Crew was my first independent client, and I was doing photo shoots and working also helping open some stores and that kind of stuff. Connected there through my friendship with Sid Mashburn, who was also from Jackson, and I didn't know him at that time in back home, but we met, and there was a little group of Mississippi folks that kind of hung out. So,
yeah, it's kind of how us North Carolina folks were out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you kind of all somehow
you find each other.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's interesting.
Yeah. So that's back when Sid was designing.
Yeah, exactly.
For J. Crew.
Right. And then I worked for, I think I did a lot of work with Armani. Started working with Calvin Klein in the mid 90s, early 90s, helping with fashion shows. Through that, I met John Varvatos, who was the menswear designer
at Ralph.
At Calvin at the time.
Calvin, okay.
And then he left and moved around, and then he started his own company, and I did a lot of work with him doing his shows in the beginning.
Because he had a stint at Ralph, right?
He did.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember whether that was before or after.
Calvin,
I can't recall. Yeah,
sure.
But
was Calvin's store open yet? It was at 59.
that was that left.
That John Pawson space.
Exactly. That was after I was working there, but it was because I think that was probably the late 90s when that opened, and I was there a little bit before that.
Such a great space.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I passed it the last week when I was in New York, and it's all boarded up. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So you're in New York doing the styling gigs.
Yep.
For years and years and years. You now live in Charlotte, North Carolina, of all places.
Who would have thought?
So not Mississippi, not New York.
Yeah.
What brought you down here?
Well, I left New York in March of 2013 or 14 without really an idea of what I was going to do, but I was kind of over the styling gig, and I needed to just kind of get away from New York for a bit. So I went back home to Mississippi and got a call from Perry Poole, who is an old friend of mine, who I had not seen in probably 25 years. We knew each other because of my friendship and his roommate, my friendship with Mark McNary, who was his college roommate. So we all sort of were hanging out in the old days of New York. And then and I helped him open a store in Raleigh.
What store was that?
Beanie and Cecil.
Oh, yeah.
So that was early, mid-90s. I can't even remember exactly. It's going
I used to
way
work
back.
2 doors away from
Did you really? That's wild. Yeah. So I did that with Perry, and then kind of really don't remember seeing him after that for much. So really out of the blue, I got this phone call. He's like, what's going on? I was like, actually nothing, and looking for something. And he said, I'm married, I live in Charlotte. My wife has a store. We're looking for someone to help us tweak the interior. And I said, well, I'm not really an interior designer, but I'm happy to help you. So I started coming back and forth here, did a little bit of work there. And in the time I was working here, the whole idea for Tabor came along, and that's something that, Perry was already developing, and I got to be a part of in the early stages of that. And
what year was that?
So we've been open about 5 years. We'll be open 5 years in the spring. So it's crazy. Yeah. So he had this idea for kind of a men's store, not unlike what his wife did, which was really bringing some attention to menswear in a way that people weren't really having access to here in Charlotte and to this part of the country, really.
That was the first impression I got when I first stepped into the store 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Hard to believe it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Was that, man, you guys are supporting some brands that I never would have thought would succeed in this area.
It's Laura Vinroot Poole's, reputation that she has had with some of these, bigger names that we've got that gives us the chance for people to even give us any time of day. And then we have to prove ourselves after that, which I think we've done pretty well with. It's an incredible mix of designers and brands that are there. And we're really proud of that.
Sure.
It's great.
So we can jump around here for a hot second. What are some of those brands, since we're on topic?
Engineered Garments, Tom Brown, Dries Van Noten, Officine Generale, Double RL, Aspesi. I mean, I could go on. There's quite a few.
Sure.
Anything else that you can think of?
I think you have Common Projects.
Common
in
Projects, yeah. We have Church's Shoes.
I saw Sunspell.
We have Sunspell. We have Tellison.
Yeah.
Gitman Vintage.
I mean, it's a healthy mix because what's the size of the store?
I mean, 800 square feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even all selling space. It's tiny.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm trying to wrap my head around because I know certain brands have minimums, right?
Yeah, I know.
So-
That's tricky.
So with 800 selling
I know.
square feet.
You know, we kind of have our solid group of designers that we've been sort of committed to now for several years, and it's really difficult when we want to start stretching our wings and find someone else because it's kind of like if we want to add anything, we have to get rid of something.
Right.
You know, and we've slowly kind of tapered off some people that aren't bringing in the you know, that we're kind of growing out of to some degree, and we're kind of, you know, always refining the quality of the people that we represent, and you know, it's a constant game of fine tuning, you know, which is exciting. I mean, this is not something that I've really done before. Working as a buyer with Aaron Price, who is my partner in crime on that, and you know, it's my favorite part of the job, really.
Sure.
It's fun.
So, but your title technically is creative
Director, yeah.
And so, what creatively have you really done for this? You
Well,
mentioned
I mean,
interior design.
I worked with Perry originally on designing the store space, so that was sort of, you know, phase one of sort of creating the vision of what Tabor was, which we really wanted it to be, you know, not a men's club in the old school way, even though it does have a very sort of a feel of, you know, kind of a place that you want to hang out and spend some time there with the coffee shop and the gallery and the bookstore and the front porch and all that. So, you know, it's a very, very comfortable spot to kind of shop.
Yeah, I would agree.
But so, you know, other than that, really, the Instagram has probably been a really, it's incredible because it's become so much in the time that we first started with the store and what Instagram is these days, and it really is kind of how we have created the biggest part of our identity, I think, in some ways, which has been a lot of fun. So that's the monkey on my back every day.
Sure.
But it's fun.
That's great.
Yeah. And then,
so you share the buying duties
Yeah.
with Aaron, obviously.
Yeah.
So what markets are you guys attending typically?
I go to Paris twice a year, and there's a handful of people that I see there, and that number is growing. And then New York. So nothing in Italy at this point. So and not that many off-season shopping. We do most of that just from home.
Sure.
For pre-collections and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the buy is so important for a multi-brand boutique, obviously. Yeah. What kind of strategies are you guys considering when you buy each season?
Well, we certainly have a budget in mind, or that we've been given, or that we're working with. But it's also just with our client base is always evolving, and it's so much different than it was 4 years ago. And every season, it's changing and evolving. So it's really keeping in mind who those people are, what sizes are they. What they're drawn to, it's not really about what we want them to wear as much as it's some of that. I mean, I think it's walking that line of being challenging in and inspiring in what the selection is, at the same time not scaring anybody and making people feel really comfortable about just wanting to wear great clothes. I mean, the whole point of us being there is bringing a point of view that really didn't exist and doesn't exist in a lot of stores, to be honest with you, not just in Charlotte, but I think across the country on that small of a scale. So, yeah.
So do you have particular clients in mind every time you go to Paris, for example?
I've got a list of people, and that helps mostly with just thinking about sizes, more than anything. So that's really the thing, is like, who's going to buy this?
Right, the breakdown.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the higher end brands like Saint Laurent, Tom Brown. We've got a pretty hefty minimum with those guys, and it's like, okay, if we're going to buy this one suede jacket that's going to be $4,000, what size do we buy? We're only going to buy one of them. Like,
right.
Who's going to buy it?
Yeah.
Did he buy it last year? He's going to want another one. Then do we take a chance on, getting a different size and, hoping, we can, something like that.
Or does he not want another one because he bought one last year?
Exactly. I mean, it's that small. It's really small in a way. And then there's just the risk factor of that's like, let's just buy it and see what happens. I mean, maybe it'll work.
Right.
We're still, it's not ever really that calculated.
It's the Steve Jobs philosophy of people don't know what they want until you show them.
Well, I think so, to some degree. I think that's what makes it fun for us.
Sure. So what metrics are you guys using then? Do you just have like a spreadsheet of guys with sizes?
That's Aaron's department.
Okay.
But yes, basically that's it. I mean, we have all of that, a record of sales and what the sales are from one season to the next, and who wore what size. And so I've got a list of clients from every designer and what size they wore and what they've worn, and so we're not repeating ourselves and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you guys kind of looking for when you go to buy? Like, what are the attributes you're looking for in a brand?
I think it's things that feel comfortable for people to wear. I think it's there's always an American sensibility to kind of what we see and what we like and how we think men should dress. It's not a particularly sartorial kind of point of view. It's a little bit more of just great American clothes in a lot of ways. And then even if that's interpreted, with a European brand, it's like, what's an American guy going to want? And it's usually, even with someone like Saint Laurent or Tom Brown, or Dries, which are the more high end and more fashion forward of the brands that we've got, what is the piece that represents the collection to some degree that will actually be desirable, and what's the anonymous piece that that's just a great jacket that someone's going to want.
Sure. No,
and also we've just got climate. It's just like the best clothes that are for men are coats, which we can't give away hardly. It's especially this winter was pathetic. So it's it's really tricky to sort of navigate through all those things that are so desirable and so beautiful. And we take chances with a lot of it. I mean, not everyone that shops at the store is here every winter and they've got a place in Aspen or know us from another place. I mean, we're spreading our wings slowly to encompass people that don't just live in Charlotte. So
sure. I was going to ask you that a little bit later of like, I would imagine your repeat business is pretty damn good.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
But in addition to that, like, how are you finding that newer customer?
Instagram.
Really?
I mean, I think, it's word of mouth. I mean, we've got people there's a lot of people who will come into town and discover the shop, and then they'll become box clients from, out of town, which we do really well with that. And I would say New York's probably our biggest city outside of Charlotte where we have a client base that's fairly small, but and even when you look on Instagram, what the cities that are give you the most awareness, traffic, exactly, yeah.
Does that surprise you at all? Because
it does.
The brands you carry, they have flagship stores there.
They do, but it's different buying in a flagship store and buying in a store where those items have been selected specifically through the eyes of that store. And I think that's what makes what we do so special. It's like, it's you're not overwhelmed with all the things that you wouldn't want to wear or couldn't afford. And you're looking at a refined edit. And to my mind, it's things that are actually real that you actually can wear that a guy's going to want to put on his back and not feel like, it's wearing them. I think that's really so much about all the clothes that are in the shop and why there is, even though there is such a broad range of designers that seem to, how could they possibly be in one space, in that small of a space, but somehow there is this connectivity to it all. And I think, and that's, every season it's sort of like, all we can do is see like what we did wrong, but we're doing something right,
Sure. No, absolutely.
yeah,
What are some
great.
of the brands that you guys gravitate towards every season, even since, the day one?
Day one, we engineered garments, APC, Officine General has been really, really successful for us. I mean, just what he does is just really great menswear, And then I think we've always loved Tom Brown. And what we do really well with the shirts,
Just like his standard Oxford stuff.
yeah. I mean, I've been wearing them since 2005.
Yeah.
And it's like bulletproof.
Yeah.
I love it. And we love Tellison for what they do, and there's the smallness of that business and how intimate they are. And
Now, is that mostly their denim?
yeah, we do jeans and some of their outerwear pieces.
Okay, yeah.
Occasional some shirting. Yeah.
Very cool. Is there anything considered to be somewhat of a staple that you guys will always?
It's funny that
regardless
you're bringing
have?
that up because we just launched our essentials collection. So that's been something we've been talking about wanting to do over the years, and as we've sort of created a shirt with Gitman Vintage and found certain items that become the client staples and things that we really believe in. As we started gathering that information, it sort of created itself. So it's a Stutterheim rain jacket. It's a Save Khaki chino. It's the Gitman Vintage Oxford. It's a Church's loafer. It's a Common Projects white sneaker. Just that core group of easy clothes that guy just kind of is drawn to and wears.
Yeah,
every
absolutely.
day. Pulls out and is like, I'm wearing my favorite shirt today. Or
So it sounds like you would probably define your customer, if I could put words in your mouth.
Sure,
for a
why not?
second, as just a very traditional, easygoing, kind of basics-driven guy.
I think so. Basics driven.
Not too many peacocks coming through, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's and we don't really cater to that many peacocks, even though there's a little peacock going on.
Well, right now with the maximalism,
I mean, there's a floral dress shirt is fairly peacock and
Sure.
and sitting pretty in the store right now.
Right.
But yeah, I think our guys are just looking for great clothes that they feel comfortable wearing, and we want to get them out of the wrong chinos and into the right ones, and update their loafer that they might be wearing, or get them in a beautiful navy suit. We just started our own Tabor tailored collection last fall. We've got our second collection coming out now, so it's 2 suits and 4 sport coats that we created, which is super exciting. So kind of expanding on the things that we kind of couldn't find from some people, from a lot of the brands that we carried, just needing like a beautiful sport coat.
Sure. What's the price point that those guys are?
Jackets were probably $1,000 to $1,200.
Okay.
Same thing with the 6. I think it was a little bit less than that actually. It was a range. It depends on the fabric. I think there was a $700 blazer up to $1,000, and then the suits were at $1,200.
So are these just cotton or gabardine, or like what are they?
We had a gray flannel suit, and a navy wool suit, and then it was several different tweed coats that some cashmere and silk blends, but basically.
So a healthy mix. It
Yeah,
sounds like,
I thought so.
What was sort of the style?
We had a notch lapel blazer with a 3-button. Then there was a sack jacket, and a peak lapel suit and a notch lapel suit. So
nice.
It was 3 models that, with several different fabrics. So.
Are you a watch collector but having trouble finding something cool and unique? I mean, the last thing you really want is what everyone else has, right? Well, this is where my friend and former Standard H podcast guest Tim Jackson comes in. He and his wife Jana own Passion Fine Jewelry in Solana Beach, California, where you'll find an incredible assortment of independent watches waiting for you in their shop and online. And if you're getting engaged, have an anniversary coming up, or simply have another reason to buy jewelry, they have you covered. Passion Fine Jewelry also employs a goldsmith on staff for any custom desires, so you're able to go that route if you so choose. Visit Passion Fine Jewelry when you find yourself in Southern California, but they're also open 24 hours a day at passionfinejewelry.com. You can also find a wealth of information through Tim's blog, independentintime.com, where he covers anything independent watchmaking related, among a plethora of other information. So check that out as well. I've really enjoyed creating these podcasts on behalf of Standard H and sharing each of these personal stories with all of you. We each have goals, and it's the entrepreneurial spirit that inspired me to start the company. You can further support the brand and the podcast by visiting standard-h.com to pick up your choice of merchandise, and as always, thank you for listening. Lastly, if you have a moment, please rate and review the show. It makes a tremendous difference in keeping these things going. Now back to my conversation with Scott. So what kinds of things inspire you every day? I mean, you've been in this business for eons. You know, I feel like I've been in the business a while. You've been in the business longer than I have.
I have been.
So what gets you out of the bed?
Clients, you know, what we can bring to them, the kind of the camaraderie that we have in the store and the environment that we can kind of create for people there. You know, art's always an influence, but really it's just really trying to do something different in this town than really people have done before. You know? Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I like it. What do you sort of define as being a good garment? Like you described the Oxford from Tom Brown as being bomb-proof, right? So
yeah.
I guess a major component of that definition comes down to quality, or at least longevity.
Yeah.
How else do you define something that's actually good?
The fit, the fabric, kind of just how it might transform you when you put it on. It really varies. I mean, every garment is different, and you know, the functionality of something or just the way the fabric feels. I mean, it's different with everything. But it's not even about price point. You know, I mean, for me also, it's just I like something that feels really wearable, that I'm going to put on. I'm going to feel it just feels right.
Sure. Are you into, and I'm only asking this almost as a sidebar, are you into salvaged denim and like raw denim? Because a lot of people think it's like itchy, scratchy, hard, you know, crispy.
Personally, I like it.
I like it.
Yeah. I like that it becomes your own. That's the thing that's so great about it. You know, you buy a pair and it gets better with time. It's like, you know, a great leather bag. You know, it's going to be, you're going to first have, you're going to be like, it's a little shiny or it's a little like new feeling, but you know, a year later it's not. So, you know, we do quite well with salvaged denim. And that's a big part of the denim we've got there. It's a little bit hard to sell, but you know, you've got your fans and then you've got the people that you try to convince and are successful with. And then you've got the guys who just want something that's, you know, comfortable and easy. So.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of funny because I would say Charlotte, having grown up and spent so much time in Raleigh, right? Like 7 jeans in 2004.
Right.
Every guy on the block had 7 jeans on.
And woman.
And it was, yeah, exactly. But since we're talking menswear,
sure.
But the conversation and the convincing that is almost necessary to illustrate to a guy that these crispy fabric jeans will actually become softer and become your own, to your point.
Right.
That's the hardest part of that sell. But once you get them hooked,
then exactly,
it's like you're hooked.
I mean, my first pair of raw denim was APC, and that was in the 90s whenever they first opened in New York. And that was the first time I was ever told that you didn't wash your jeans, and that, you know, it was about dry cleaning was what we talked about then. You don't hear that as much now.
Like woolite dark.
What's that?
Woolite dark in the bathtub.
Right, exactly. But the dry cleaning was the thing back then. Now it's you know, a dip in the tub kind of thing, but you know, once a year at most. And we still carry APC. That's part of our essentials program too.
So how do you describe your personal style?
Efficient.
I like it.
You know, I mean, almost everything. You walk into my closet room and everything is navy, basically.
Right. So the whole idea white. Of kind of a uniform.
Yes and no. I the older I've gotten, the better I feel like I look in something dark, but with a white shirt usually. I mean, that's kind of my go-to. But I also don't want to have to think about it. Now I have to go to work every day and I have to get dressed, and I enjoy every bit of it, but I also don't like to have to think too much about it.
Right.
And also with traveling, it's great to just you just throw a bunch of stuff in the suitcase and it all works.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Exactly. Versatility.
And there's a part of me that's gotten a little bit lazier and less experimental. And then living here versus New York, I mean, when I was a stylist, I was more interested in experimenting with a lot of different things and kind of seeing what it felt like to wear something from Rick Owens and what was that all about.
Sure.
And, whatever. So living here now, everything is seen through the eyes of Tabor, and what does that guy look like, and how do I need to come across to the people that come to the store, and so it's been such a big shift in the way I think about getting dressed now than ever before, because it's being looked at in a different way. And
how much of what you're doing at the store, right, based on how you dress, do you view as an education touch point for the person walking through the door versus this is just how you want to look given the assortment available?
I don't think about it that much, but I think that it is a little bit of both of that. I have to consider that I'm a representative for the store, not just in the store, but anywhere I go in town. And,
that's really nice. Like that's like a really sweet sentiment, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean,
too many people don't think that way.
Yeah.
About their job.
Well, I mean, it's such a small, intimate group of us there, and it's such a personal job for me, and I've been involved in it from its inception, and it's
so the emotional investment
is very emotional. Yeah, very, very much. And so, I don't think that there's a day that I don't walk out the door not thinking about that. And that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like that's when you're where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I certainly am surprised that this is where I landed and that this is what I'm doing, but because I've really not done any of this before, but so many different things that I have done have contributed to the things that are asked of me now.
Sure.
Which is kind of great. So it's all still feels really new and fresh, as opposed to just like, I don't know what I'm doing,
That's cool.
Which is cool.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, the layout of the store is really interesting too, because you walk into a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly.
And you hang a hard left into a gray walled space that's very on brand, given like your business card color and everything else that's really cohesive. You were kind of, before we started recording, you kind of went down the road of telling me the setup. So the coffee shop is actually an independent business.
Yes. So we're in a sort of a historic bungalow on a main road that's like a highway running through Charlotte, kind of tucked away up on a hill. Old front porch. We took that building over, did a lot of restoration or enhancement to it, and we joined forces with Chandra Johnson, who wanted to open up an art gallery, which also incorporates a bookstore. We had always wanted to have a little cafe, but that didn't really. We created the space for it, but we didn't really have the coffee people in line until really it's been a couple of years now. But
so you guys were there before the coffee shop?
Yeah. Well, the coffee came in. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So it was just sort of a desk up there waiting to be taken. And we had a few people. We had some people in there. Not just coffee is there now, and they were there for as a pop up for a while. But fully engaged with us is fairly recent.
Gotcha.
So the idea was always there. It just took a while to find the right people.
But you guys don't own that.
No.
So they just lease the space from you or whatever.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. But it's a great experience. I mean, we've got the front porch, which is a place during the day people can hang out, but it's also a place we have, dinner parties, which is awesome at night. And, the parking lot becomes, a place that we grill or, put half a pig or, the events and the band playing out there. And, we've got a couple of big events during the year and, get 200 or 300 people out there.
It's really cool.
There. It's really a great sort of spot.
I love the porch because it just makes me feel like I'm in the South.
Exactly. No, it's great.
That kind of wraparound porch thing, and especially you from Mississippi. I know those old like plantation homes.
Right.
That's got to take you right back, right?
Yeah, I love a porch.
Very cool. I would be bouncing off the walls if I were that close to an espresso machine. I think that. Are you an espresso guy? Are you a coffee guy?
I do my coffee in the morning before I get there usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's kind of next for Tabor? Is there anything that is kind of on the to-do list necessarily, or is it just kind of stay the course? Or can you talk about it?
There's all sorts of things that we talk about. There seems to be a real interest in women's.
From a jealousy perspective, or because you guys are doing things so well?
No, I think
I'm joking.
I don't know. Right now, it's about increasing the client base and really sort of continuing to fine tune what we're doing. To talk about anything further, I mean, there's always talk about another store. There's always talk about doing a women's store. There's always, all of that's talk at this point. I have no idea. We're not really interested in making too many big changes anytime soon. I still feel like we are just getting our feet going.
Yeah.
It's
it ain't broke. Don't fix it.
Yeah, right. Not yet. It's all interesting to talk about, but not yet.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what do you like to do with your free time then? What are you doing when you're not working?
Playing with my dog.
So just hanging at home?
I pretty much hang at home. I really do. I'm pretty quiet. I mean, the job is such a social job that it's sort of nice to sort of not have to talk to anybody at night.
Just kind of unwind. No,
I really do.
Totally
and then get up and do it again the next day.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
So do you get back up to the city?
I'm going on Sunday, but
cool.
Really just for market, at this point. Taking off for a weekend to go up there just doesn't feel like the kind of thing that it just feels too short of a time to get up there. So I miss my friends up there, but we stay in touch. Thank God for texting.
So is there a market up there? I know that's Fashion Week.
I'm going up there for something else.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah. I'm still dabbling in some interior design work, so I've got
nice.
some fabric I've got to look for. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, when you said Paris earlier, I thought you might go for the fabric show for some reason.
No. I'd love to. I've done that before, and it's amazing. It's incredible. It's overwhelming, but no. Usually, it's just regular market.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just immediately went towards your suiting and blazers when thinking about that.
I know. Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Where did you guys get your fabric?
Well, the fabrics were provided by the maker, and that was really convenient, and but also I think not quite as broad as what we would like. So really, kind of right now, still exploring what our options are for that to sort of make them our own. I think that's the thing. I don't want to be making something that someone else might be using the same fabric if possible. So,
right.
I mean, some things don't matter as much, but a navy flannel shouldn't matter. But, a particular tweed or whatever, I think you want to kind of let it be.
Yeah, sure.
Your own, the only one there.
I was going to say, because fabric development's a whole different beast.
I mean, come on. We don't have that much time. There's only 4 of us there.
So, mostly a homebody when you're not working. Are you traveling at all? Any other trips, or is it just Paris twice a year sufficient?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I did a lot of traveling back in the day, but when I had more time.
Well, cool. Well, just wrapping things up here, I did notice the ring.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to take a photo of that and post it on the Instagram.
It's not anything.
No story?
No story whatsoever. It was a purchase on eBay. I wish I could tell you it was my grandfather's or something like that. But,
no way. eBay find.
Yeah.
Amethyst?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like it.
It's
kind
like
of a blob of gold.
But sort of Art Deco.
Yeah. There's a modernist quality to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I like it.
And I like a faceted stone.
For sure.
It's
yeah.
cool. No watch, though.
No watches.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have some, but I feel, I'm not supporting, but.
Right. No, it's all
But
good.
Yeah.
Cars.
I love cars. I'm practical about everything right now.
All the
I've had some
money in
good
the
ones.
world. What are you buying?
Oh, goodness. I mean,
What's your dream?
I'm not flashy.
Dream garage. What does it look like?
Okay. It's charmingly modest. I would like to have another BMW 2002. I had one
that's
at
a
one
great
point. I
car.
love that car. I love a Volkswagen Fastback. I love a hardtop MGB from probably sometime in the 60s.
It's funny you mentioned the 2002 when it
Yeah.
was like 2001.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
year. I mean.
Yeah.
I was like crossing my fingers that BMW would re-release.
Oh my gosh, I
the
didn't even thought about that. Yeah,
2002
yeah, yeah.
In 2002.
Yeah.
Alas, they never did.
I
Obviously.
love that car.
Yeah.
I mean, those are three of my favorites, and they're all sort of for no reason other than there's something about them I think is awesome.
They look
you know,
great. That's why.
Some kind of spider.
Sure.
There's yeah, but I like a smaller car actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, Scott, I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's
And
been
having
great
me
talking
into
to
this awesome apartment of yours.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, this is such a great space.
It's been nice.
Well, let's head back to the store and,
Okey-doke.
and maybe get some shopping done.
I'd love that.
Okay, man.
All right, man.
Thank you. Well, this concludes season 2 of the podcast. Please don't forget to rate and review the show so others can find it. And definitely big thanks goes to Scott and the team at Tabor for having me. It was certainly great to be back in the shop, and as always, thanks to Clear Audio for the noise-canceling headphones, and to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. I'm off to New York to get Season 3's lineup started, and I think you're really going to enjoy what I have lined up. I can't thank you all enough for your continued support, feedback, and all of your comments regarding the show. It's been an absolute blast, and I'll definitely see you for Season 3. Cheers, everyone.